Happy Monday, everybody. Hope you all had a great weekend, and thanks for checking in to Monday's edition of the Trade to Black podcast. I'm your host, sdales. So what'd y'all think when you read on Twitter yesterday afternoon that President Joe Biden, will no longer be running for presidency in his second term, and this leading the way for Vice President Kamala Harris? And what does this mean for all of us cannabis investors? Stocks have ripped today. We saw a lot of green, which is a great sign. So let's welcome in Anthony Varrell, TDR co-host. I know we got a lot of comments going on right now on our take as to what went down on the news yesterday, but I'm sure that grabbed your attention.
Yeah, speaking of comments, it is the last day for the comment period for rescheduling.
Good point.
The comment period expires at midnight tonight. Just a little public service announcement. If you are involved in this sector and if you do care about this sector,
yes,
if you haven't submitted a comment, I mean, you probably should. It's your responsibility to do so.
You know, it was great.
And partake in the overall process.
How about that clip that Mark Bronstein, I thought he was a great guest on Friday's podcast, but he basically was saying it's not Congress's responsibility to understand this industry. It's our responsibility to inform and educate them on. But yes, as I see that more and more and more, we have really got to get the voice out there and really communicate more and more to bring this to like a lot of people's attention. Because as we're learning, and I think we kind of knew this, but the more and more guests that we're having on, we're realizing that there needs to be more of an effort, I think, for the overall industry, everybody on deck, whether you're part of a company or they're an investor or you're basically a American citizen in any specific state. If you want change, then you can control it yourself. And that's probably a lot of the responsibility that we need to start doing, which is great why we do these podcasts, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So, and I saw Fear No Evil. Where do you go to comment? There's actually really good articles on Marijuana Moment, as well as the Green Market Report, that'll tell you exactly where you should go onto the Federal Register to submit your comment for rescheduling.
Yeah. Christopher Brady, give us an update on what's the final amount of comments.
37,000 and change.
37,000 and change. All right. Let's jump in. TDR, Trade to Black podcast here on Monday, Into the Wire, our segment number one. And it begins with obviously the big news yesterday involving President Joe Biden announced that he will not be running for a second term this upcoming fall, with Vice President Kamala Harris now being named as the lead candidate to be the front runner for the Democratic Party. And as a result, we saw a number of cannabis stocks move today, which was nice to see. So first up, I know there's a lot of people that follow this space and understand what she would do for this industry. For those that don't know, Anthony, what would a Kamala Harris presidency mean for this cannabis space?
It would mean a lot of things. I mean, it would mean that we could potentially see descheduling and legalization. It would mean that the fear of rescheduling not going to a final rule before the inauguration due to timing and being at the mercy of a Trump presidency would be alleviated completely. I think she would be good for criminal justice reform, as she's seen that, as we've seen her do that with Fat Joe and with the likes of her meetings that she's had at the White House. Kamala Harris would be a complete friend to the cannabis industry and a huge net positive for the cannabis industry. That being said, we speculate and pontificate a lot about what a Trump presidency would mean. To the counterpoint to that, I think it'd be neutral to just, he wouldn't care. That being said, it's as long as the federal rule or the final rule is implemented by the inauguration. If the final ruling is still up in the air, Trump wins the presidency and he gets inaugurated, he can just have his DEA and AG just sit on it. He doesn't have to backtrack it. He doesn't have to do anything. He can just sit there and sit on it until he pleases. So, I mean, that's the worst case scenario, is that the final ruling is unimplemented, the inauguration happens, and Trump winds up taking the White House because of the opacity around what he would actually do in terms of cannabis. But I think there's absolutely no chance that if it does get implemented and he does take the White House, that he strips it out or guts it. I just don't see that. I don't see that happening.
I agree. The only thing that grabs my attention is we've been down this road before with the Democratic Party. And like, yes, Vice President Harris has taken some, necessary steps to meet with various people to bring this more of an attention. But you wonder, like, at the end of the day, because I know a lot of people still believe that she still won't get anything done I don't know if I would basically say that, but it's a fair question to be asked, knowing that history has shown that, we've seen very little change. But do you not think we're at a time now, considering what's happened and what this could mean for the popularity of their vote leading into the election, that something will indeed get done?
I do. I think that there is a chance. I don't think it is a resoundingly big chance, but there's a chance that they take this final ruling, they run with it, they implement it, and they say, to hell with the process. We need to claim a win. And this is going to be one of the wins that we're going to stack up with the momentum on the way into November. Do I think that could happen? Yes. Do I think that there is a very high probability of that happening? Probably not. But we are on the last day of the comment period. We are now going to find out if there's any potential hearings. And this process of the uncertainty of the process is going to start to shed light on what's actually going on.
Yep. You almost wonder too, like, she has done some pretty great thing. I don't want to say great, but she's done some good things to draw awareness towards this space right now. And does the topic of descheduling ever get brought up during her presidency if she was elected? That's a good question, but that would gain a lot of popularity. But first things first.
But here's the thing. I mean, I don't think her bringing up buzzwords going into the election cycle in November is going to do any good. She needs action. Like, if she actually implements the final rule, or they actually do something in regards to, let's say, Schumer passing Hope and Safe, she gets some talking points and they actually do things, then sure. But if she's going to stand up on the election stage and say, hey, I'm going to deschedule cannabis, hey, I'm for legalization, with all due respect, I would say that she's full of shit, just like she's been from the beginning of her career when she was a state AG locking people up for cannabis.
And that's if she is the candidate selected for this Democratic Party. Sorry, I thought I said Republican for a second. But that's in a month in Chicago, which is August the 22nd. Worth noting, too, that Chicago is the hometown of who, Anthony?
Barack and Michelle Obama.
Yeah. So we're going to get into like a potential vice president candidates and what their stance is on cannabis and whether they be there's a lot of positives. Some of the rumored names right now that would be partnered with Kamala Harris in her campaign leading into the election. But wild times, man. We are 3.5 months away from this election, and everything just got turned upside down. But I think all for the better. As much as President Biden was trying to run for a second term, common sense finally came into America once again and realized that, look, this guy is not capable of running another 4 years, let alone now. But Trump had some good stuff to say on Truth Social, where he wants basically the Republican Party to be reimbursed for the amount of money that was spent on that debate as well. There was, among other things, like who is the sitting president right now and who's making decisions on behalf of the country. So we are just getting started. What's going to be a very eventful 3.5 months, to say the least. But here we go, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sick of the narrative already from today of who's running the country. The same people that were running the country today are the ones that were running it last week.
Yeah.
Nothing's changed. It's just Republican talking points. And to be honest, Trump needs to focus on how he's going to fix the country and how he's going to implement his actual policies, and care much less about refunds from a debate from weeks back. Donald's going to lose the election and lose a lot of ground with people if he keeps focusing on the bullshit and the minutia. He's going to win the election if he stops personally attacking these other politicians and lays out a roadmap on how he's actually going to fix the country. Either side's going to have to do that to win. They're not going to be able to do this shock, insulting, just bullshit politics that we've had for the last 8 years. People are fed up, and I mean, I'm speaking obviously for myself, but I mean, I'm not going to support whoever's sitting there acting like a child. I'm going to support whoever's going to sit here and lay out the roadmap of what's actually going to get done versus the last 4 years.
I thought that speech was painful, very painful, but I don't want to make this. Yes, very painful.
Donald's speech would have been amazing if he would have just spoke for 25 minutes, shut the hell up, and got off stage. I turned it off within 30 minutes because right after that, he immediately just started to just go off kilter. And I was like, yeah, I don't even want to watch this. I'm not the least bit entertained.
Loves the limelight. We're going to get into, like I said, some of those candidates during our MSOS segment, Monday segment with Dan Ahrens. But before we do that, let's finish up into the wire. And let's focus now on topic number 2. And it involves Louisiana GOP Senator Bill Cassidy, who's condemning the Biden administration, saying he's very concerned about the supposed lack of transparency and how the agencies arrived at their decision to move cannabis from a Schedule 1 to a Schedule 3. So what's your take on this? Like, we saw a 225-page document from the HHS. In your opinion, was it enough information, and do they need to provide more transparency?
So at face value, I thought that his request was a little just overreaching. And then I started to look into his record. Let's keep in mind this is a GOP senator from Louisiana. You would think that he's not a friend of the industry. And I mean, looking on normal, as per his voting record, protect states' medical marijuana program amendments. Yes. Veterans Equal Access Amendment. Yes. Safe banking. Yes.
Yeah.
Veterans Equal Access Amendment again. Yes. Safe banking. Yes. He votes yes on cannabis policy, and he's a red senator from Louisiana. What he's asking for is just more insight into the process, more insight into the data and the numbers that actually went into the HHS 200+ page document. I don't hate what he's asking for, because if he does obtain any more insight into the process, and if the onion is peeled back and then that information winds up going public, then us, the investing community, and the ones that are sitting here on pins and needles are going to have more insight as to what's transpired over the last, we'll call it 90 days. So I'm all for it. And I think that the agencies also have a responsibility to relay information when requested to these sitting politicians. It's not out of the realm of what's asked. I mean, it's common practice to some extent, from my understanding.
So you think more or less just the way the current administration is doing a lot of this stuff is purely for political gain on the way this is being handled right now, versus like the lack of transparency is what he kind of indicated.
I mean, I don't think any politicians really do things on behalf of the people, to be completely honest. Over the last couple of decades, anything that a politician does usually has political gain to be captured by their actions. So by definition, yes, a politician pushing policy forward is for political gain.
Yeah.
So I don't find that as an argument, to be completely frank. What I do find is that if I'm a sitting politician and I have an inquiry on a committee that I sit on, he sits on the Helps Committee, which actually this is pertinent to. I have every right to request information. And if I'm stonewalled, I would like to know why I'm being stonewalled in that regard. But yes, his assumption that this is being done for political gain, thank you, Captain Obvious. You would be doing the same thing, pushing cannabis legalization and rescheduling to further your political agenda, aka political gain.
Yeah, when I saw this on paper at first, I thought 66 years old. Here we go, another generational boomer, where it's just like not really. I think he's 66, if I'm correct, or is he?
He's a red senator from Louisiana. I mean, if you wanted to put public enemy number one without knowing his voting record, he's the guy.
Also worth noting too, he's a physician, so I thought that was rather interesting as well. In addition,
and this is on behalf of the. I mean, I should know this. Where the helps. It's the Health Education, Labor, and Pensions Committee. So this does fall, you could argue, under his purview to understand a rescheduling process of a Schedule 1 narcotic to a Schedule 3 narcotic. So I don't think he's operating he's operating outside of his purview within his position.
Well, like you said, fully in support of medical marijuana and safe banking. So first, like I said, I thought I have to look at this, because here we go, another person that's against probably anything to do with progress with regard to the industry, but that's so far from the truth. So there is something here. But anyway, I thought that was rather interesting. Into the Wire, TDR, Traded Black Podcast, Monday, MSOS Monday. Dan Ahrens coming up in just a moment. I'm your host, Shad Dales, on with Anthony Varrell. Before we get into the Tilray news, we saw some nice price action here today. What did Canopy end up closing on for the day?
It's great price action. I called it last week that we might see a Kamala rally if Biden bows out. And I mean, that's what happened. I also, with a caveat, said that let's see how long-lived it is and what actually goes on. So I'm more curious as to the follow-through tomorrow. But Canopy was up 17, GrowGen up 11.5, TerraSend was up 11.5, MSOX was up 11.5, SNDL was up just under 10. Aurora was up under 9, which doesn't really make sense. Air was up 7%, Jushi 7%, Cresco up 6%. There's a green tape all around with Canopy leading the way.
Nice and green day. We like that sort of thing, don't we? Okay, well, we'll watch that closely, but to your point right there is like, how long will this last for? But the initial thought is great. I think there were some great things too, and I know there's some people out there that say with this announcement you'll see cannabis stocks rip, and a lot of the times in the retail community, when they think of the definition of rip, you're thinking like the stock's got to be up over 100%. Like that's, at the end of the day, when people think of the term rip, they're thinking big upswing, potential when it comes to share price. But from an institutional standpoint, you're a hedge fund manager, maybe outline and describe the definition of what rip means and what you're talking about as far as percentage numbers. You want to elaborate maybe on that?
I mean, you're investing money at much larger sums, so the net gain it hails in comparison from a percentage basis, but it stacks up from a dollar perspective.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you're managing real money, and I mean, I consider real money like 9 figures, but position sizing, think about it. If you're putting $10 to $12 million into a position, granted, that is very large for the cannabis space, judging by the volumes and just the way that these underlying assets act. I mean, 12 million bucks, you're getting 10, 20, 30% moves on that. You're selling and then cycling back in, and you're making your money. That's a tremendous gain, net for your portfolio.
Yeah,
they're not looking for 300% upside return. That's just not. It's not the way somebody that's disciplined with money even thinks about investing. Getting a 30% gain on a position in a short period of time is a very, very good outcome.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of the realistic things that most institutions will look at. And I know we're still fixated on what happened during the Canadian run, but I think it's important to share when somebody uses the term rip, especially on an institutional level, it may mean something that's between an intended and 30% gain, which, the example that you just outlined makes sense. So
granted, the caveat that I would just say there, as the person that we were talking about from his tweets last week, was stating that he believes that the sector had 2 to 3x gains. So he is signifying 200 to 300% upside. That being said, from just a I guess responsibility perspective, I mean, yes, RIPs should be somewhere between double digit gains.
Well, it's a good day. Let's just mark that down. A good day. Also, if you guys did get a chance to see, check out our Small Cap Sunday podcast from last night with myself and TDR lead financial writer and analyst Bill McNarland. We highlighted Jushi Holdings and we walked through a seven question experiment like we usually do, but we initiated coverage on them last week. So if you got a chance to do so, make sure to click on that QR code in the lower right hand corner and make sure to subscribe to our baked in newsletter, which we're humming along. I appreciate everybody that's subscribed so far, but we had our biggest week last week yet. So let's keep those subscriptions coming, because if you want to know anything and everything related to this industry and a few companies that we're initiating coverage on and why we like them or don't like them, or there's a hold, it's a very balanced approach. And I think you'll get a lot of insightful information. This isn't just about promoting companies. This is all about having a great perspective and doing proper journalism. Let's go now to headline number 3 involving Canadian LP Tilray, who made some big international news today. And they announced basically their German subsidiary has received the country's first new cannabis cultivation license. I know Germany is definitely a market that you like to read up on. How big is this announcement, Anthony?
So it's big in headline fireworks, I would say.
Yep.
It's the first license that was granted under the new system, the 3-pillar system that was installed a couple of months back. Tilray's grow capacity right now goes up 5x, which is significant. Their offering of products, and here's where I kind of got tied up. So I'd like to talk to somebody from Tilray or someone that's more well-versed in the German market. But the main takeaway from this is their strain production now goes from 3 strains to, I believe, 31 strains within their grow facility. But at the same time, under Pillar 1 and under the physician and under the framework of physicians writing the prescriptions to the patients, it's not like the patient, have the optionality to be like, all right, well, I feel like some Durban poison today, or I feel like I want orange mints. From my understanding, the physician is being like, oh, well, this is what I'm giving you, and here's your prescription. Have a nice day. So it sounds great. I'm assuming that this is foreshadowing to other pillars coming online and having that optionality in more of a true rec market versus the juiced medical market that they currently have. But I think this is a pretty important announcement for Tilray nonetheless. And if it's anything like what we saw with the Canadian LPs and their rollout from a licensing perspective, Tilray might not be the first or the last that get granted new licenses under this framework. There might be more coming in the coming weeks for other operators that are currently in the space.
But more or less, it's a good thing, even if you're expanding from 3 to 31 strains. And even though it is this physician's responsibility to see what you need to prescribe for, as they get more and more educated, this is going to create more and more options, obviously, for Germans. But I think most importantly that we need to really understand, yes, these prescription fillings are much easier based on what's transpired in that country over the past few months. But I'd be curious to see, and it's something I want to reach out to Erwin Simon and his team as to, like, what is the rollout as far as more and more doctors being educated in this industry within that market, and what kind of like timeline? I think there's been some positive sentiment towards it amongst doctors in that country, but there's still a lot of education that needs to take place from what I've seen and heard. But more or less a good announcement. And curious, we keep talking about these hemp-derived products, and I'm still surprised I haven't heard any news pertaining to Sweetwater and Tilray regarding the U.S. market. We touched on a few times too, but
speaking of, I don't know which email it was of mine, but I just got an email actually from Wana Brands. Gummies delivered straight to your doorstep. So that implies the hemp derived products have gone live. We've got happy news for the first time ever. 3 delicious Wana flavors are available for delivery in most parts of the United States. Order now. And it's the hemp-derived gummies that they're launching in partnership with Happy Beverages.
Huh. There you go. That will be interesting to see. Another good conversation we had with Michael pertaining to that space. What was the one? Oh, yeah, we mentioned about how drawing a blank right now. We posted on our Twitter account about THC, synthetic THC, will remain a Schedule I drug.
Yeah, that'd be great.
In the event to rescheduling. So I thought that was interesting. That pertained to obviously the hemp industry. But anyways, if you gotten a chance, make sure to check out that video from Friday as well. But that concludes Into the Wire here with Anthony Varrell. I'm Shad Dales here on the Monday Trade Black podcast. It's now time for MSOS Monday segment with Dan Ahrens. Ahrens, cue the music, my friend. Happy Monday, sir. And how you doing?
Doing all right. Doing all right. I like having a
green
day. But everybody shouldn't be getting too excited, because all we did is make up for Friday's hideous day. If you guys remember last week. Do you remember last week?
Yep.
But
now for a dose of reality with Dan Ahrens.
Now the glass will be I'll be half full again. Last week was a really nice kind of steady, a nice Monday through Thursday before we had the rug pulled out on Friday. So maybe Friday's an anomaly, and I like the uptrend. Today was nice though. Today was nice.
So where were you yesterday when you heard the news, saw it online? I don't think it's somewhat a surprise, but when you do read something like that, it does catch you a little bit by surprise. But like this had to be done. But now it's like, I don't want to say there's chaos. There's a lot of uncertainty as to who's going to be the lead candidate. I think we understand it's probably going to be Kamala Harris, but who knows? Like, I'm also rumor seeing like Michelle Obama. Could she be? But, truthfully, at the end of the day, it's like, what do you think this does as far as like the whole election landscape? And, more importantly, what kind of an effect this is going to have on the cannabis space over these next few months?
Well, all sorts of thoughts. It seems like Kamala is probably ingrained as the candidate now that we've seen even more people come forward today saying they're endorsing her. There's enough people endorsing her that there's probably no turning back. it would be a really nasty switch after all these endorsements to try to
Yeah.
switch her out at the convention, which reminder to everybody is still basically a whole month away. Can you imagine all the rhetoric we're going to have for the next 4 weeks before that the DNC actually starts? It's reminder. We have a big wait for that convention.
What
There's going to
she
be a lot of
raised, Anthony, you said it. How much money has she raised the last 24 hours?
A little under
50?
100 million in the last
Wow.
24 hours.
Yeah. So that's some serious
So
cash.
it's actually pretty genius politics. You kind of got to give credit where credit's due. They kept Biden hanging along until after the RNC, and then bait and switch. So
Well said.
it's under. They kind of circumvented democracy, if you want to call it that. But
wait, what?
But
you
at
said
the
it out
same-
loud?
Yeah, but at the same time, I mean, genius politics. But I'm very curious. I'm actually more excited for the DNC than I was the RNC. I think the DNC is going to be a fireworks show, especially if there's some pseudo open convention, even though they already know that Kamala is going to be the pre-selected candidate. I mean, to see them all get up there and actually kind of sing for their supper and really fight for the delegates versus it just be a cult of Trump love fest. I'm pumped to see it. And I don't want to say guarantee, but I bet cannabis, marijuana, however you want to say it, it's going to be mentioned more than a couple times at the DNC.
Yeah. It's amazing what a week does.
Yeah, that's the only big wild card. Because on one hand, I agree with you, Anthony. It'll be mentioned. That'll get people excited. You know, even I'm hearing people think that she doesn't have a chance to win versus Trump where he is right now. But the mentions of cannabis, getting it in the discussion, all that is great for cannabis investors.
Yeah.
Don't know if it's good for the country. It's good for cannabis investors. But I agree with you, Anthony. There's going to be fireworks. It's going to be messy still. Because here's something. Does anybody even remember the name Dean Phillips?
Yep.
He was running against Biden, and you know he did get crushed in the actual voting, but he was also crushed in some ballot not being allowed to be on ballots, pushed to the side. It was. I mean, Biden was just rubber stamped over some of these guys. RFK wanted to run as a Democrat. So there's people that wanted to run for the office. And I'll repeat what Anthony said. I think we've seen democracy circumvented here a little bit. If we're just going to anoint Kamala as the nominee, I think there's going to be some fireworks. There's going to be some nastiness. I don't know if everybody's going to be on board with this, and there's going to be some serious competition for that VP spot.
Serious competition. So on that note,
that's where I think we get the most mentions for cannabis. Is going to be the VP's the VP stance on it. And I mean, I don't think Kamala can win. But my fear is that Trump does to Kamala what Hillary did to Trump in 2016 and just thinks it's a shoo-in, it's a lock, doesn't do what he has to do. And then, surprise, November 5th comes around and you see that it's swung to Kamala.
You never know how many votes can come in at 3 a.m. either.
Irish Avenger writes, I think she can win. If they debate, she'll rip him apart. I wouldn't go that far.
So do I think that she has the skill set to rip them apart? No, but I do think that she has the skill set to make Donald go up there and show his true colors, because I think he'll get personal and I think he'll get insulting, and it's going to be the Lil Marco, Lion Ted, weak Jeb. He'll go up there and you cannot do that to a woman and a sitting vice president, more so on a national stage. He'll show his true colors if that happens.
Well, you mentioned 4 candidates that you're interested in seeing, Dan. So let's highlight them. There's 4 names right now, as I'm seeing. One of them, let's begin with Governor Josh Shapiro out of Pennsylvania. Anthony, I'll begin with you. What's his current stance on cannabis for those in understanding and learning more about the space and what he would mean for the overall industry?
I mean, we've beaten Pennsylvania like a dead horse. It's no news to anybody that he is in support of cannabis. He's got it in his tax plan. It's just the Pennsylvania government, from a bipartisan bill perspective, just cannot get it together. But I'd be highly, highly surprised if he didn't say anything that was not positive about cannabis on a national platform.
Yeah. Dan, you want to add to that?
I agree. He's pro cannabis. I'll also just throw in the obvious fact that most of these candidates are moderate-ish, middle-aged white guys. But they might be thinking that's what the ticket needs. I'm going to say something really rude, but I don't think he's going to be the VP for the worst reason possible. That's anti-Semitism.
Mm.
And that's
say that, but
bad.
I was going to say that, but I didn't want to go there. But yes, I mean,
Yeah.
I was honestly hearing that this morning. People talking about just that, which is ridiculous on
It's ridiculous.
so many, many different grounds. But yeah.
Wilson Trades Maui, good to see you, my friend. How's the weather in Hawaii today? Instead of repaying for the debate, they should pay for another debate so Harris can do exactly what Anthony said. Do you think we get another debate in the fall?
Trump already said he's not going to do it.
You think that changes at all with Kamala in place?
No, he said he's not. He said he's not willing to debate Kamala.
I missed that.
Come September.
Wow.
He's smarter than that.
Yeah. Smart.
He has a big lead. Why would he risk it?
Yeah, I hear you. All right, we talked about Josh Shapiro, governor of Pennsylvania. Let's now move to governor of North Carolina, Roy Cooper. And again, we'll repeat this process each time. Anthony, what would he mean for the space?
So North Carolina, red state, I guess becoming more blue by the day. So it's called a purple state now, with the mass exodus of people from the Northeast finding their way there. They've got a medical framework on paper. They have no medical framework as far as implementation goes. However, Governor Cooper on many, many occasions has given positive commentary as it relates to decriminalizing cannabis. He believes that cannabis should be decriminalized. He believes that nobody should be in jail for small amounts of cannabis. So, I mean, while his actions within his own state that he can't really control a lot of, as I really wouldn't blame the shortcomings of Pennsylvania on Shapiro directly, where we can blame the shortcomings of, let's say, Virginia directly on Youngkin, as he point blank vetoed the bill. I don't think there's enough evidence to say that Governor Cooper wouldn't be friendly on the ticket or on a national stage as it relates to cannabis.
Well, positive to say the least, with some of the names that are being floated around. But Dan, you want to add anything to that?
No, not really. It's just it's one of those states that's a mostly red-ish state that doesn't really have much in the way of medical cannabis yet, but the governor's been spoken positively. But hey, we are talking about potential VP candidates from the Democratic Party. I think it would be crazy town to say any of these are going to be negative to cannabis.
Yeah.
It's just which ones are going to be more outspoken than the other ones. But no, he'd be solid.
That's a good point, Dan, because I would have to say that Shapiro would be more outspoken than Cooper, as
True.
Cooper's base surely skews redder.
Yeah.
And they've not, and I think it also creates a different perception within your base if you can actually experience what a medical or an adult use market looks like in actual common practice. The people of North Carolina don't have anything to go off of except for the not illegal, but the second-rate hemp shops that are just all over the state, which they might see as a public safety issue and a net negative versus a state-regulated market.
Yeah. Michigan's a very, very big state, to say the least, leading in this election. But many people, it's kind of a split state right now. But if Shapiro were to vote in, we'll lose Michigan vote, writes Adam Gillis. But still a lot of
interesting Interesting fact about Michigan that I uncovered today. Whitmer in 2022 combined cannabis and hemp from a regulatory body perspective within the state.
Yeah.
That's all I know. I have no idea what it looks like actually in implementation and practice, but I'm going to look into it now because I'm very curious as to how they're cohabitating and how she basically just drew a line down the middle and said, guys, you're now both on this side of the line from a regulatory standpoint.
She's also a pretty hated governor. She was almost kidnapped by a militia. And at the same time, too, she had major restriction lockdowns when it came to COVID. And you ask anybody from Michigan there, they'd be glad to see her in the rearview mirror. But
that's where you lose me every single time.
Yeah. Mark Kelly, Senator, Arizona, a Navy vet, ex-astronaut, excuse me. Dan, you want to touch on him? Do you know a little bit about him and his background and what he would mean for the space?
Well, yeah, it's another one of those hard pushes to the middle for the Democrat Party here. Retired military, conservative-ish white guy for a Democrat, and the cannabis market's strong in Arizona.
Yeah.
So solid. You know, I'm still sitting back with my popcorn, wondering if they are going to do that white guy push towards the middle for to accompany Kamala. I just don't know. I don't have strong opinions there. I'm just reading the same articles you are.
Yeah, I kind of tend to agree with you, but I also, who else is there? They're not going to run Hakeem Jeffries with Kamala. He's too progressive. I mean, no way in hell I would vote for somebody like that. That's so progressive. That would be VP. Wes Moore would be great. The governor of Maryland. He'd be a fantastic candidate, and he sits more moderate. And Gretchen Whitmer already came out and said no. She's not interested in the VP slot.
Yeah.
Except, Anthony, so a politician said, no, I don't want the VP slot.
I know.
Wink,
Push comes to
wink.
shove. Push comes to shove, it could change.
Yeah. A politician speaking, you know, that might be her way of saying, please pick me for the VP spot. I see in the comments here, Pete Buttigieg.
No, I can't. I can't do that. Judging by his body of work as transportation secretary.
Yeah. Now, see, the thing is, I think, come on, even if is Kamala a strong management VP, or is she going to do what the party wants her to do? So yes, the powers that be will push for the best babysitter VP for her, rather than going more to the left.
What I would do, instead of taking the white guy from a moderate state that you think is going to appeal to everybody, get a businessman, get somebody out of left field to be vice president. It was funny because last week on Mark Cuban's Twitter.
So you mean somebody that's not even in politics, like just straight from business?
Yeah, 100%. So last week on Mark Cuban's Twitter, he made a comment on something that said, someone asked about him running, and then he put the trade deadline hasn't elapsed yet. And my smart ass goes on there and makes a Pokemon reference. I was like, a wild Mark Cuban appears to enter the race. And for some reason, he liked it. And then he started like just interacting on the thread. I mean, seeing someone like that, especially after he sold the Mavericks, he's kind of postured a little bit to maybe he'd like to do something politically. I mean, I see him more as a president. I don't see him as a vice president, but getting somebody from the private sector that's a businessman, male or female, I think would be refreshing versus a politician that's just going to do the same old song and dance and really not move the needle per se.
Well, Cuban is all over the place politically, officially, but remember, he is now in business with Marian Adelson, which there's no question about her political leanings. But that would be a left field pick to go with the non-politician. But once again, I think she might be viewed as a weak politician, and you need to bring in a strong politician.
Well, if you're going to combat, it's obviously the entrepreneurial side of things and business side of things that can combat against Donald Trump, because that is the main reason why people vote for this guy. Last person I want to bring up, candidate Andy Beshear, governor of Kentucky. Anthony, what would he bring to the space?
He's a Democrat. He's a Democrat governor in a red state. That's all you need to know. He's
well said.
That is probably center as you can get. I saw him on CNN about 4 weeks ago.
Yeah,
he was giving a case as per why a Beshear ticket would make sense. Cannabis was part of his agenda for about 40 seconds of the clip. He's well versed in it. He's well aware of it. He understands. And like I said, that man is dead center. So that's who I said would very much so entice me into gravitating towards a Kamala ticket.
All right,
somebody like Beshear.
So Josh Shapiro, governor of Pennsylvania, Roy Cooper, governor of North Carolina, Mark Kelly, senator out of Arizona, and finally Andy Beshear out of Kentucky. Out of those four, who do you guys think is the leading candidate? Dan?
The odds makers in the article I saw was saying Shapiro, but I don't see it, so I'd have to say Beshear.
Anthony?
And he's been saying a lot of positive things about cannabis.
Yeah, I mean, who do I want? I want Beshear. Who do I think is going to be Cooper? Just because of where North Carolina is right now in just the calculus of the country.
Yeah.
They're being seen as like a center of finance. They're growing. They're thriving as far as the state goes. I think he's probably going to be the one that gets tapped.
How old is he? Do you know?
No idea. If I had to guess, white guy, governor of a state, somewhere between 50s and 60s.
Huh.
Yeah, I don't know. Besides that, I'd say the same thing. You know, I just an observation, though. Just an observation. Amazing to me that every 4 years there's so much talk about the VP, their policies, what they care about, what they're going to bring to the table. And as a reminder, after the election's over, the VP is just kicked to the curb. No one cares about the VP. They don't do anything.
So I agree with you completely. And I don't think we would even be talking about who the potential VP pick is, or would we have been fixated on who Trump's VP pick was if Kamala didn't grab the cannabis shit by the reins and have people in the White House actively speaking about cannabis and criminal justice reform and hosting Fat Joe and all that stuff. That is what made me interested in the VP situation within both parties.
We care about it because we're in the cannabis space. But she was also appointed the board. She was also appointed the border czar, and she took a look at the border and said, "Oh, I don't want to fool with that."
That's a completely different comment. Yes.
So she did.
What was that? The late 80s. Remember Dan Quayle running for vice president with George H.W. Bush? Like who? You know what I mean? But why is that? Because anyone you ask, or a lot of people you ask, it's like, who do you vote for?
Look at Mike Pence. Mike Pence was a wet blanket.
Yeah.
No one knew who Mike Pence was.
But with this election, with so much uncertainty regarding the two leading candidates for both parties, vice president conversation is front and center as well. But one thing that we're seeing more and more of a common theme, which is actually quite interesting, because when we saw the stuff in Washington related to a lot of elderly politicians, we're starting to see maybe a turning of the page with JD Vance and then some of these other potential rumored candidates with Kamala Harris.
But I mean, that's it as well. The reason why everybody was fixated on the VPs is because before Biden dropped out, we thought it was a very, very real thing that either of these guys don't survive their next term.
Mm-hmm.
Not from like a artificial perspective, just natural causes.
Here's one thing I got to hand it
in light of recent events.
Donald Trump went to a rally, was shot at, and could have been killed. And then 3 days later, he's in Milwaukee giving a speech. And I'm just like, I saw Megyn Kelly on her podcast basically saying, I'm 25 years younger. And when 9-10 o'clock hits, I'm ready to go to bed. And for a guy that's 77 years old, it's pretty incredible, the gas that he has in that engine for considering that age. But I'm all for a new era of politicians. And I don't even live in your country, but it has a major effect on the country that I live in. Anyway,
how do you think the tape looks tomorrow, Dan? Do you think we get follow through, or you think this might fizzle?
I hate to predict the future because I never know, and I never claim to know. I would say I like the momentum. I know what happened today was strictly about the announcement yesterday.
yeah, of course.
That's easy to see. But I liked the momentum we had last week, Monday through Thursday, until Friday. What the hell was that? and I had people calling me on Friday, basically, and I'm talking about some CEO, chairman people saying, "What the hell was that?" Like, I don't know. They didn't know either. No one knew what was going on Friday.
I was impressed. I was impressed with the strength end of day, because I was watching Canopy. Canopy popped to like 12.5, traded down to like 8, and then it finished the day up 17. At like 2:30, it just started showing strength as well as a bunch of the MSOs. So that was my big takeaway from the day.
Seth Jacobs, that's a very good point. Fundraising might carry momentum tomorrow. That's a very good point.
Yeah, and I was just going to say, thanks, Seth, too. And I was going to say, based on the reasons for how they were going up today, there's no good reason to think it can't continue tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's what I'll say.
One thing that we are in, and you said this earlier, Anthony, was just the reality of like Kamala Harris can't come on and talk about the things that she's going to do. We need to see real action. And I think, again, this is another example that if this is short-lived, like we are at a stage now where it's pretty evident and clear that unless we get rescheduling announced, among other things, if you do see a rally, I think it could be, like I said, short-lived, and the potential upside potential with a sustained period of time is not going to take place until we have something concrete and actually something that changes. Because till now it's just words, and we've heard that song and dance for quite some time.
It's like I said, if we get lucky for once, and she happens to instruct Garland to take that final ruling, run home with it, and just get it done before the election, so she could have her little trophy and her talking point, and we happen to be perfectly positioned for that and subject to that luck, I'm all for it. Do I think that is the likely scenario? No. But can it happen? Yeah. Crazier shit's happened before.
Yeah. Matt Spencer writes, Gavin Newsom is vice president. I don't see that.
I'd rather move out of the country than that happen. But
Irish Avenger writes, Canopy Growth should have technical support after slicing the 50 MDA. I haven't looked at MSOS for where it's sitting, is what he wrote. But anyway, Dan, as usual, good to see you on a Monday. Thanks for checking in and giving your political take. It seems like every Monday now we're talking about politics. Where does time go, though, considering all the stuff that's happened in politics the last 7 days? It seems like J.D. Vance being nominated last week, it almost seems like 3 months ago.
Oh, about to have earnings season. So we'll have
a crazy period.
2-week window of just talking numbers and pray to God somewhat semblance of growth.
Very quietly, I think a lot of companies are going about their way, but that's okay. You know what? We'll have our day in the sun, but here we are.
We're not hearing anything. I mean, granted, a lot of the companies are in a blackout period right now, but the press release front, I mean, aside from the Tilray press release today, there hasn't been much.
Yeah.
Over the last 2 weeks.
We'll dive into Tilray's earnings actually next week because I think they're announcing next Monday, the 29th, followed by a week from Friday is SNDL. And then the following week after that is full on MSO seasons with GTI leading things off on August 5th. So lots to talk about in the coming weeks, which is good. Don't look now, man. Oh man, next month is August already. But we, as much as we talk about the fall, it's getting closer, isn't it?
It is fall. I'm looking forward to fall.
Same. I've been looking forward to getting this comment period over with and getting out of the summer.
All right. All right. I forget what the prize was, but it looks like you're going to be the winner for the actual amount predicted, which is around 35, 6, 7,000. If you said off the top, I can't remember, but
39 right now, as per Christopher Brady. So if there is a huge spike tonight, that means that Guap could potentially win. But if barring that
Dan, what do you
surge,
think? Anthony's saying like this is the Price is Right type rules that whatever your guess is, you can't be over. So he guessed 2,000. Guap
22,000.
Guap did 42. I did 78,000. So I'm clearly out of the picture. But who do you think wins in that situation? Should it be Anthony at 21 without going over? Or do you think it's Guap?
No, closest counts. If you're going to say closest without going over like Price is Right, it has to be very specifically called at the beginning.
We said it in the beginning. We did say it in the beginning.
Let's go to the tape.
Got herself
And
a winner.
also, Christopher, I don't know what you're reading, but I'm looking at the register right now. It's 36,919.
Right.
It's not 39.9. So I'm probably going to win.
All right. And from the words of Bob Barker, don't forget to get your pet spayed or neutered. And I forget the other line that he said, but regardless, enjoy the rest of your afternoon. And thanks for checking in, Dan.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Dan.
All right, that'll wrap things up. I think we're working on a few things, hoping to get a few executives from the MSOs on this week. But like you said, they're in a dark period right now, so tough reaching out to them. But regardless, as I said, we got earnings coming up in a week from now. Guap is still on vacation this week. This is July, and a lot of people away. But just when you thought the DNC was going to be pretty much bland and mashed potatoes, suddenly that becomes entertainment. You can understand how these networks are just cashing in a lot of money. Must see TV, regardless of what party you're looking at.
If it's an open convention, I borderline want to go.
Maybe we should. Maybe we should. Daniel Davis, Charting Man Dan, back this week or next? Let me check real quick because he did DM us on Twitter. He was away last week. He sent me Friday, July the 12th. So he was back away next 2 Fridays. So that was Friday, July 12th and Friday, July 19th. So yes, he will be back this Friday. So we'll look at some charts and some movements. And why not? Because we've seen some movement. As usual, as I said before, make sure to check out our Small Cap Sunday podcast. We've initiated coverage, as I said last week, on Jushi, among a lot of other companies. So look at or click on that QR code. Make sure to subscribe, smash some like buttons, and leave some comments below on some feedback on our takes on some of these leading candidates for VP. Do you agree with us? Disagree with us when it comes to our take and what they would mean for the cannabis space? Let us know your thoughts. As usual, it's our responsibility to carry this message forward. So make sure to subscribe and share this video with your network. We got to get this out, people. We got to get spot cannabis front and center. Go ahead, Anthony.
The spot ETF, the spot Ethereum ETFs begin trading tomorrow.
Good point.
Those that can will start trading tomorrow. Forgot about that.
Yes. Seth's very good, very informative with some of the stuff that he outlines. Has some good takes, and thanks for outlining that too, Anthony.
But anyway, notes and forgot to say it.
All good, my friend. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon, and we'll see you back here Wednesday at 4.
See you guys.
Take care. Hey everyone, thanks for watching our latest podcast. Lots of momentum building. You guys getting all excited? Leave comments below. Again, we want to take this viral. Smash that like button and make sure to click on that bell for all notifications as we start to bring on bigger and bigger guests. Don't forget to subscribe to our daily newsletter, the Baked In newsletter, by logging on to thedalesreport.com. And we want to take this viral, as I said, and make this community grow. So make sure to subscribe on that channel because we wouldn't be here without you. Thanks again, everyone, for watching.